In this video, I want to give you a product tour of this Champion wood splitter. It happens to be the best-selling splitter in Canada. I've been using it for a while, comparing it to a couple of other machines that I've been using for years. I like it. It's not a perfect wood splitter, but it's pretty good, and I want to show you the features, then you can decide if it makes sense for you. Besides some really beefy overall construction, I mean, heavy plate steel, an I-beam, lots of beefy welds everywhere, what struck me first was the ability of the splitter to work horizontally like it is now and vertically. So horizontal is great when you're working with logs that aren't too big, and they're pretty convenient to pick up because you can work right at waist level. But if you're dealing with really big logs that are too heavy to lift, then you can simply pull this pin out here and tip the whole hydraulic ram assembly up vertically. And now you can just simply roll big logs into position, kind of wiggle them into place underneath the wedge, and do your splitting that way. Another thing I like about this splitter is how easily it rolls. I've towed this, on the back roads and on some paved roads. It's stable, it rolls well, and it's also easy to move by hand too. It's well balanced. There's a fair amount of weight on the other side of the wheels, so it's not that heavy to lift, and it's got a handle here. Really, the rollability of this thing comes down to these wheels. They're excellent wheels. They're about 16 inches in diameter, and they have serviceable bearings that you can grease, sort of automotive style, with a cap that comes off to let you inspect them. The first thing I noticed when I started using the splitter was how fast the ram is. It's considerably faster than the hydraulic splitter that I've been using for about 10 years now. It works well, and the shape of the wedge is such that it really delivers a lot of splitting power. The wedge is angled back a little bit, so it tends to hold the wood down while you're splitting instead of letting it pop up. And then the back part of the wedge here is very wide, so you start the split easily with the pointy part of the wedge, and then the wood encounters these side wings on the wedge and really just pops that wood apart. Now, if a piece of wood does get stuck on here and it doesn't come off, these two pieces of metal welded on either side of the main beam will push that wood off the wedge, so you don't have to wrestle with it by hand. Now, if you've ever used a wood splitter before, you know that it generates a lot of little bits of bark and chunks of wood and things like that. Now, these support tables are very handy. You put a big chunk of wood on here and you split it in two. There's room to move one of those halves away so you can split the other one up finer. These tables are made out of narrow pieces of metal, thin pieces of metal, and it means that the bark and the wood chips fall right through on both sides, so it doesn't build up and make a mess, which is kind of a nice thing. Now, there is one thing about this splitter that I'm not crazy about, and that's the location of the wheel in relation to where I want to stand. Because where I want to stand, I want to put my leg right about here. I can still use the splitter, of course. If I turn a little bit, I can sit here and operate it properly, and that won't be a problem. But ideally, I'd like to move in a little bit closer. Not a big deal, but just maybe one little flaw in an otherwise excellent machine. Now, as far as maintenance of the engine goes, the way they've got it located here, kind of out in the open, makes it very easy to get at. And this is the oil drain plug here. There's lots of room for a pan to catch that. Spark plugs, very easy to get at. Choke, fuel controls, air cleaner. Nothing's crowded. It's actually a whole lot easier to get at this engine than it is to get in the engine of my old hydraulic splitter that I've been using. This, as with all hydraulic splitters, this is a tank. It holds the hydraulic fluid, in this case automatic transmission fluid. And nice feature they've got over here is this sight glass. So you can tell at a glance. I mean, the oil's pink, pinkish red. You can tell at a glance if you've got enough oil and if it's ready to go. So if you're in the market for a wood splitter, I think this one would make you very happy. It looks like quite a machine, well designed, good value for the money, and lots of versatility.